We are in for a massive treat today. We have our guest, founder of the global business coaching organization, ActionCOACH, and the pioneer of the business coaching industry. Brad Sugars shares with us some amazing tips. He just has this way of making business simple, things simple, simplifying business. And he's got this amazing saying, business doesn't get easier, we just get better at business. And how relevant that is for everything that we do. Leadership doesn't get easier, we just get better with leadership. And learning is the theme of today's episode. Brad, excited to have you on the podcast today. Thank you for joining.
It's wonderful to be here. I love business coaching. You kind of know that.
I know you do. So usually I would ask, why business coaching for you? Now, this interview is going to be a little bit different because you are the creator, really, of the industry, business coaching. Tell us why, how did that happen? Why business coaching?
You know, what happened was I was running my own businesses and I was very young. I was 20 or 21 and I was doing speaking. Robert Kiyosaki put me on stage, Stan and Jane Jordan in Melbourne, Australia, Gary and Lucy, and all these people wanted me to be on stage talking about how I'd succeeded young. And people would come up to me at the end and say, can you consult with us? Can you help us? And, you know, maybe I'm a bit of a slow learner, but it took about 30 or 40 of them asking me to finally go, well, look, why don't you just call me every week and I'll try and coach you through this stuff? And that was sort of my response. And eventually it was like, okay, if people want this, let's actually deliver what the market wants. You know, if you keep selling coffee and everyone asks, do you have tea? Do you have tea? You should probably be selling tea. So I started coaching, and the reason I started coaching rather than consulting is I just didn't have time. And so I said, I can give you maybe an hour a week if you call me. And that's sort of how it began. And now it's, here we are 31 years later, about 280,000 people we've coached, 2.5 billion in revenues, and about 18,000 one-on-one clients now, and more than 100,000 in our training programs at the moment. So in 84 countries, since we just opened in Oman. So that's kind of cool. And, thousands plus partners and thousands of team members around the world, because people were persistent and kept asking me, will you help? And yeah, here we are today.
And how clear were you on that vision back then? Did you ever see that it would have got as big as what it is today?
When I first started, I was just doing speaking. And so I just sort of, people wanted me to speak. And so I spent it. And I almost got burned out by doing this, because I was doing about 200 events a year, 2 years in a row. So that was 200 flights, 200 hotel room nights, etc. And it just got to that point of, okay, this is just crazy. And so I was in Auckland, New Zealand, and I remember I was at a hotel across from the Rose Garden, and I sat down and wrote the vision for ActionCOACH of World Abundance, because I thought, if I'm going to work this hard, I've actually got to do this as a business, not just me. And so I had to get away from it being just something that was dependent upon me into an organization that had a vision and a mission and all of those sorts of things, so it could develop its own identity and become its own self and not just be Brad on stage sort of thing. And then the great thing about teaching is that you have to organize your thoughts to be able to teach it. So in order to do that, I had to develop systems, and therefore the simplification of all of the models. And that's why ActionCOACH, our ABOS system, the ActionCOACH Business Operating System, is a model of how you build a business. It goes through the mastery and the niche and, all the different aspects of how ABOS is installed in a business started back then, because I had to organize my thinking of, well, how do I do that? How does that actually work? How do I get that done? And so was I 100% clear? Not for the first year and a half or 2 years, I don't think. I think after that, I got clarity around what I wanted to build, that if I was going to build it, I might as well build it in every country in the world. Well, subsequently, I went back and researched McDonald's was in 119 countries, so my goal is 120. So got to beat the old Maccas.
So you mentioned, this concept of building a business that can work without you. That's pretty kind of out there and foreign for most business owners. Why is that important?
Well, multiple reasons. I think the most important is the fact that you are at some point going to have an exit from your business. Now, whether that's in a pine box or whether that's because the business dies, or is it going to be a planned exit where you actually build something that you can sell? If you want to sell it, it's got to run without you. If you are the key ingredient to the business's success, then you can't sell the business. It's not a business you're selling, it's a job, and you're the only person that can do it. I learned early on that, the whole idea of hustle and grind and work 80 hours a week, just, I don't know, it was the wrong way of building a business. It burned me out rather than built me up. I didn't feel great about my business, didn't love my business. I remember I'd got to a point 10 years in where the business was very successful. We're around the world in many countries. And my daughter Kobe was born, and I didn't want to be traveling anymore. I didn't want to be anywhere. So I just sort of handed the business over to my chief operating officer, Vic. He became CEO, and I went and retired for 4 years. And I think you and I met around that stage when I was living on the Gold Coast, going to your restaurant all the time because I didn't have a job. I didn't have anything to do. I was a full-time dad. I took the kids to the beach and hung out, but the other reasons you've got to build it so that it can work without you is firstly, so it's a saleable asset. Second, because at some point you're going to want to take time out of the business. But the third is so that the team actually have the ability to grow, and the team have the ability to go somewhere. I mean, if you cap the ability for your people, then why would they want to work there? I remember as a 21-year-old, I think, my dad telling me, Brad, you only get people that are as good as you are. And I went, what do you mean? He said, well, you're an average manager running an average business. The highest caliber of person that wants to work for you is average. You get the people you deserve was his motto. And so I had to learn to be better. And I think that to get great people into the company, I had to build a great company.
Yeah, I remember.
But also to build to the vision, Michelle, but to achieve the vision of world abundance through business re-education, to achieve that vision, we need a massive team.
Yeah.
Our customers are our team, our staff are our team, our franchise partners are our team.
I remember I tell this story often when we met, way back when. Just taken over the restaurant and been in 3 weeks, and the first thing you said to me was, what's your exit plan? And I was like, who is this crazy person? What do you mean? We've just taken over 3 weeks ago. But that meant that in 3 years we were able to sell the business. And often that question's not something that we contemplate when we start a business, or let alone kind of stuck in the day to day.
Yeah, I just did a video on the 4 goals that a business owner must have. Number one is getting control is goal number one, or step number one. How do you get the business so that it's not running you all day, every day? And that's about getting control, mastery of the business. And then the second is getting the profitability right so that you're actually making enough so that you're not just paying the bills, but you're actually able to invest in other things and do the outside things. So goal 1 is control. Goal 2 is profitability. Goal 3 is off the tools. When do you get off the tools? If you're a plumber, when do you stop plumbing? If you're a doctor, when do you stop doctoring and run the business? And then step 4, or goal 4, is when will it run without you? You don't have to leave. You just have to be able to leave. You have to have the decision or the choice to go take vacation, or let the business run without you and go and do another thing that you've got a passion for now. Because I see a lot of people who build a great business and then they have a passion for something else. And because it doesn't run without them, they never get to go and do that thing they're passionate about.
So you mentioned, the thousands of, businesses that you've coached and touched, across the world over the years, whether that's through, on stage, a training program, masterclass, or coaching. What do you find sort of is the difference between, getting a business from, or the mindset of a business owner from 1 million to 10 million as an example?
Well, going to 1 million is about you being really great at what it is you do. Going to 1 million is about the product and the service, and it's you working your tail off, essentially. If you work really hard, you'll get to 1 million. If you want to get to 10 million, you've got to build a team that works really hard. And if you want to go from 10 to 100 million, you've got to build a system that works really hard. So there's a distinction at each phase, your work, your team's work, your system's work. And then to go from 100 million to 1 billion is all about strategy and scale strategy. And that's sort of that next phase. And I look at one of our clients, Paul, who's, I think he's either just about to or just did do the first billion. He came to me at 30 million a year, and he had a great organization, but it was him working 24/7. All the decisions went through him, and he had a good team around him, but not a great team. 2 years later, he brought his team back across to hang with me. And then I had 4 team members. It ended up only being 3 of them stayed, but one of them has gone on to build a 900 million pound division of the business. One of them took a 30 million pound division to 300 million. It's you've got to build yourself, then you got to build your people, then you got to build your systems, and then you got to build your strategy, sort of thing.
So you just have this way of making business and life simple. I don't know how you do it, but it just, when you explain it, it just seems so simple, like what you've just shared now.
Yeah, look, simplification is easy. Easy is not easy. That's the thing. I can simplify it and make it so you can understand it. Buckminster Fuller taught me. So when I was very young, I studied a lot of different things, and Bucky Fuller unfortunately passed before I was old enough to really understand and learn from him. But he always said models and artifacts. And so if you're going to teach something, create a model, and that's why ABOS is so important. Our business operating system, it is what people install in their business to run their business. Like our management systems, we take that and install it, but management is broken down into a model. Here's the model. These are the things. You've got to create competent, productive people. Here's the meetings that you do to do that. And here's the paperwork that you do to do that. Do you know what I mean? It's like that's my thing. If you go back to, I had him on my podcast recently, Gary Sanchez, who's from the Y Institute, and he lays out my life bare on my podcast, telling everyone exactly my why. But my why is to make things better. The way I do that is simplification. I try and simplify things so that it's easy to teach and understand. I go back to the Einstein quote, and I love the theory of making it so simple. And if you can't teach it simply, you don't understand it well enough, sort of thing. But if I can't teach it to you on a napkin, then we're not in a stage where I've got it to the right level of thinking to teach it.
So there's so many forms of business coaching for listeners. Is it training? Is it meeting someone one-on-one? How do you best describe what business coaching is?
The answer is yes, it's all of those things. So training, coaching, mentoring, they can be interchangeable in definition for different people. So mentoring is a less structured approach. It's usually someone who's been there who, it's quite a unstructured, just conversations type thing. Coaching is a far more structured approach. And so like for us at ActionCOACH, we can through training install our systems, or we can through coaching install our systems. With the owner or the CEO or high-end execs, we generally want to do that through coaching, usually because they already have a very high level of knowledge. And what you're doing is helping them act on that knowledge and refine that knowledge, sort of thing. When it's more junior team members, sort of thing, like if I go into a company today and ask how much management training have you given your managers, the answer is a dull stare, because it's usually, well, we haven't given them any. And so, okay, there we've got to start with training, because we've got to inject the basic knowledge points to install the system. We can't just coach them on refining their management. We've actually got to teach them what is management, how does management work. Same with salespeople, same in marketing, sort of thing. Sometimes you've got to go right back to the training to install the knowledge, so that then you can coach them on refining the application of that knowledge. So, but yeah, a lot of coaching is one-on-one, and some of it's in group scenarios too. I find peer-to-peer coaching works very well as well, where we have a program called Profit Club, where business people will meet every week or every 2 weeks, depending upon the program, and they will be accountable to each other, that peer-to-peer coaching. So I go back, though, Michelle, to 4 things that come from coaching. CARE, we call it, community, accountability, results, and education. when you join a coaching organization, you should be joining a community, because business is lonely. It's a team sport, but as the owner, you need a different team to help you than you do when it's day to day running the business. Like, who do you talk to? Who do you bounce ideas of? I found, I just came back from the UK in an event, and several of the owners there that said to me, you know what, just knowing that it wasn't just me, just knowing that I wasn't alone in this thing, and that it wasn't just me that had these problems, it was a big thing. Second is accountability, and whether that's peer-to-peer, group accountability, one-on-one coach accountability. Big companies have accountability because they have a board of directors and a shareholders and a share price that's quoted every day. Small business owners, their only accountability is paying the bills. And if your goals get down that low that your only goal is to pay the bills, then you've lost the point of being in business for yourself in the first place. Your goal has to be able to build an asset that's finished that you can sell. Results, massive focus on results. I think that too many business owners are focused on being busy rather than on the actual, what is the bottom line? What are the number of leads we need? What's the conversion rate we need? What's the profitability, the repeat business rate? What's the average sale we need? Those sorts of things. And then education. You've got to get the right education. And having been in this 31 years, we have the preeminent level of education for SMEs, but then also for CEOs. Our program for CEOs and corporations is amazing. To give them structure and format the business operating system for a large corporate is very powerful as well.
So you've talked about learning, you've talked about installing the ABOS system, what it takes to build a business. Let's talk about the business owner, or building the people, including the team, the leaders in the organization as well. So you've got this, amazing global community of people that we've literally changed lives. And, I know that the most impactful story I've heard, and we hear so many stories of, amazing success around the world, but it was at a BizX event, and the client got up to accept an award for his success, and he said, working with a coach helped me, triple my profit, double my team, but better than all that, I'm home for dinner, I take family vacations, I sleep better at night. And he said, I'm just a happier person. I mean, there was not a dry eye in the room. So talk to me about people, building yourself as a leader, and why is it as important as building the business, and where does that come in?
Well, the funny side of me would say, well, Michelle, the business can only grow to the owner's level of incompetence. Once you run out of knowledge and ideas, the business runs out of growth, and a business that's isn't growing is dying. But the more serious side of that is there is a very high level of pressure on a business owner, on a CEO, on an executive, and there's very few places they can go to talk about that pressure. Having a coach, a friend, a mentor, a person that they can go to is, in some cases, not just important, it's life-saving. I mean, I know I've coached through that before, and I know many other of our team members and partners around the world have coached through that sort of stuff. Growing people in this world, we live in possibly the most connected time we've ever lived, and also possibly the loneliest time we've ever lived in. I had Charles Vogel on my podcast the other day talking about loneliness and how that's become a reality out there in the world. And I think that we as human beings, you ever seen that meme where someone goes back to their high school reunion and they go, "Oh, you've changed," and they go, "Oh, you haven't." It's like, aren't we supposed to? The tree doesn't stop growing, nor should the human being. And so our growth, and this is where, like, someone asked me the other day about it, was I ever certain that ActionCOACH would achieve what I'd set out as a goal? And I said, I was certain that I was willing to learn and grow. I was certain that I was willing to work hard. I was certain that I could build a team. I was certain of those things. Was I certain that we would get there? I'm pretty damn close idea to it. But the only thing that is the difference between a business that is growing and a business that is going backwards is the growth of the humans in the business. You don't build your business, your people do. If you build your people, they build your business. Yes, you got to build systems. Yes, you got to build brand. But who's better to build the systems? Someone who's great at systems. And that's not me. Okay, I'll put my hand up on that. Who's better to build do you know what I mean? Like, if you build a great team, if you build great people, then they build a great business. I think we get too busy thinking we got to do it all ourselves. And I had to learn it early on that saving a wage costs a fortune. You know, every time I try and save a wage and just do it myself, I take myself away from doing the things that make the most impact, and I'm doing things that are just saving money for the business type thing. Oh, and when I stopped doing that and I said, okay, I'm going to stop doing any of this stuff. I'm just going to be on the phone over here making sales. You know, it doubled the business because I stopped doing the stupid stuff, you know, but have to learn it all. We all have to learn it at some point, I guess. And my biggest lesson was learning to let go and trust people to do the work. You know, that was my biggest emotional shift I had to go through to achieve success.
So you've got this amazing formula, the success formula. Walk me through that, because I know you've mentioned learning a lot already. Why is that in the middle? And walk me through the formula.
So the formula is dream, goal, learn, plan, act. Build your dreams first, okay? Because if you don't have massive dreams, you're not going to have big goals, sort of thing. And even though dreaming is tough for a lot of people, it's something that we all have to get good at some point. And if people struggle with it, because I had one lady one time say to me, you know, I can't put my dreams down on paper because I just don't know how they're going to happen. I said, that's the definition of a dream. You know, if we did know how it was going to happen, it'd be called a to-do list item. You know, the fact that it is a dream, and Professor Alan Pease says it best, he says the biggest killer of dreams and goals is the word how. How kills them. So we got to document our dreams, and you got to go crazy. And I for 3 months of the year, every year, I carry a dream journal. And I carry it for 3 months because I just want to keep adding things to it, type thing. And so I find that for 3 months, I'll see something and go, oh, let me put that in the dream journal type thing. My wife thinks that some of my ideas are absolutely crazy, and then we go and do them, and she's going, that was a great idea. So, you know, take your dreams, which are sort of 5, 10, 20 years out, turn them into goals. So 5 years shorter is where you start goal setting things. 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year goals, like 5 years of, I plan to have the business running without me by this date, sort of thing. So those are the goals. Most important goal is the daily goal, by the way. Daily, then weekly, then monthly, then quarterly. I don't want you to be good at annual goals until you're good at daily goals. If you're not good at daily goals, if you don't set a goal for the next day, every day before you finish work, then you're not going to achieve your weekly goals. Pretty simple. Daily plan, daily goals. So that then brings us to learning. If I set a new goal, so for example, just prior to this, I was on the phone with a friend who she's amazing at crowdfunding and building community around crowdfunding. And I'm looking at building an affiliate program for the business. And so I scheduled the affiliate program we're going to start doing in Q3. So here in Q2, I'm studying that stuff. So I'm spending time learning. I think as humans, we don't give ourselves enough grace to do the learning, to do the study. Like even with her, I didn't even know what questions to ask. Like I spent a half an hour, and by the end of it, I'm like, okay, now I've got some decent questions that I know I want to ask. So she gave me a few websites and a few books and things, and I'll go and study that so that when I do get to it and find a group that can build it for me, I'll have enough knowledge. So dream, goal, learn. Once you set the goal, then you got to do the learning. And people understand that if you say, okay, your goal is to run a marathon. Yep, got to go and do the training, got to go and do the learning, got to go and put in the reps, got to go and do the thing. Well, once you've done the learning, then you write a plan. Okay, so again, with a marathon, I've set the goal, run a marathon, got to go and do the learning, the practice, the training, get a coach, join a team, etc. And then I write the plan. You know, once I've done enough of that, I can write, here's my training plan, my eating plan, my blah, 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 my marathon plan. Well, once you've written the plan, then you go to work. And so if I'd just written the goal and then tried to write the plan, my plan would basically be do more of the stuff that I'm already doing, which didn't get me there in the first place. You know, it's the old don't complain about the results you didn't get for the learning you didn't do. Yeah. Got to build yourself, build your knowledge if you want to write a great plan.
So you run a week in Vegas every week called Strat Week. Is that why you
once a year? Yeah, once a year, Strat
once
Week.
a week? Once a year, sorry, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be great if it was once a week, but yeah.
Not for me. It's the hardest week of work I do a year because, I take 10 businesses, invitation only, and help them build a multi-billion-dollar business plan. So how do we strategize doing that? That's really the thing.
But it's not about the how there, though, is it? It's about a lot of it's about the dreaming.
I think there's a balancing act to dreaming and doing and learning, right? So they come with a dream of $1 billion business. They go, I think it's possible. I don't know. But even if I got to 100 million, that'd be great, sort of thing. And so by the end of the week, because of what we've done and because we've actually done the learning and we've done the planning, the belief goes up massively, sort of thing. If we didn't do the learning and the planning, the belief wouldn't go up as to the high level it is. Where you get people who came in thinking, if I got to 100 million, that'd be amazing. And they walk out with a $3 billion business plan. Because you got to remember, billions is just X times Y. If I've built, say, a $20 million business in one city, and I go, okay, to have $1 billion business, I've just got to put this in 50 cities. It's not that hard. But, people overcomplicate things, Michelle. They definitely do.
It's not that hard.
But it's like logically to do the plan. See, to write a business plan for $1 billion takes about the same level of energy and effort as it does to write a business plan for $1 million. The difference is for $1 million, you'll work 10 times harder. And for $1 billion, you'll raise the capital and go do it. It's much easier to build $1 billion business because you go and raise the capital. So,
So, a lot of what the education that you give and share and our coaches do across the world is not just about building the business, but it's also creating their wealth plan. You've got 30x wealth. You've got billionaire in training. I mean, what's some amazing stories you've got of success of people that you've worked with that have created incredible wealth?
Oh, yeah. Look, there's plenty of them that have done hundreds of millions and that sort of thing. And so many have done millions and tens of millions. But it's my daughter asked me to start doing a podcast called My Rich Uncle. And because she says everyone needs a rich uncle, like her friends want to come and ask me advice. And even though my daughter is like, yeah, dad, it's like, but all of the friends, I think my kids think I'm cooler now because their friends want to learn from me than that. But it's like when you're young, not even when you're young, Michelle, where do you get your financial knowledge from? And if you don't learn money, you work for money. If you want money to work for you, you've got to do the thing. But the way life works is you gain knowledge. From knowledge, you gain skills. From skills, you gain connections, right? And then from connections, you gain results and more results, and then you gain some wealth. And if the connections and results and wealth all disappear, you've still got the knowledge and skill. And so it's really coming back to what if there was a way we could assist people to learn? And here's where it started, actually. My clients got to a point where they were making enough profit from their business, and they're like, well, Brad, what do we do with the profit? And I went, I better go and learn this too. So I had to go and learn real estate investing and had to go and learn and learn and learn. And with my first clients, we actually just learned it together. All of us learned it together. So, and now I just the other day, I was on the phone with actually, I'll give you a prime example. We had the BizX conference, 1,200 of us, Gary V, Simon Squibb. I got all of these amazing speakers, and Daniel is the last speaker. Now, Daniel's book, oversubscribed, has been a worldwide phenomenon, bestseller, amazing thing. And we get into the green room, and he goes, Brad, you don't know this, but we've met before. I'm like, what do you mean? He said, when I was 19, I was at the seminar with you on the Sunshine Coast in Australia, and that's where I worked out I could be in business for myself. So, yeah, some people give me the OG nickname, but I'm not sure. I think that there are a lot of originals well before me, the Jim Rohns of the world who You stand on the shoulders of giants is a big thing. It's just for this generation, I think I'm going to be that guy. But when people read Billionaire in Training, they start to understand how business is the first cornerstone of wealth. And then once you've got a business and you've got an income, then you need to put it somewhere, and you're going to either learn the stock market or the real estate market. You're going to learn one of those two. And that's where you start to invest for more passivity in your investing type thing. You don't go and buy, Apple shares and trade them every day. If you buy an Apple shares, you're buying them to hold them for a long term. If you buy an Amazon shares or Visa or whatever, So.
Yeah, one of the things that I love that you teach, which is just so foreign, I think the more that we learn, the more angry I personally get about our school system and the lack of education that we do get. But I think, you teach this principle of putting aside 10% of everything that comes in, not the bottom line, because if we wait until it's the bottom line, we often, if we're lucky, get 10%, but we don't. We'll find something else to do with it. So taking 10% off your revenue and then putting that towards creating wealth. I love that concept.
Yeah, when we teach people to set up a profit business account, and ultimately we'd like them to have a profit account and a tax account and maybe one or two others depending upon where their jurisdiction and the type of business they're in. But that profit account is vital for a business to have, because if you don't pull it out, you're just going to spend it on something. It will get spent unless it's pulled. So it's really important to do that. But the idea or the purpose of a business, and I just taught this last week at a group of people that were asking me about real estate. I said, well, what's the purpose of your business? And they said, well, the purpose of business is to pay the bills and make money. I said, no, the purpose of the business is to fund a piece of real estate per X period of time. Now, let's say you chose every 2.5 years. So you'd buy 4 properties every 10 years sort of thing. So you, over 2.5 years, have to develop enough profit, pull enough after-tax profit out of the business to be able to buy the deposit for another house sort of thing. And in the beginning, it might be every 5 years, or it might be every year once you get good at it, or every 6 months once you get great at it sort of thing, and that's where you start thinking about. And I know for you, Michelle, with your marketing agency, the profits you're pulling out of that will fund a property every X number of months or years or whatever it is. So there you go. That one funds another one. That one funds another one. And if you keep doing that, once you've got 10 properties, I remember my original learnings on this was 20 properties. If I go right back to Robert Allen said 20 properties and you're done. And so it was like, that was my goal in the beginning, 20 properties so I can be done sort of thing. And then I got 20 and I was like, there's too many of them. I want bigger ones now, it's like.
So let's talk about the market. There's a lot of crazy things going on in the world right now. It's easy to get distracted by a lot of it. What are you seeing in terms of the business kind of future or trends that are happening sort of in the next 3 to 5 years? It's just changing so quickly, isn't it?
It is, but it's always done that, and this is a thing where a lot of people go, oh, look how crazy it is right now. Really? It's crazier than when COVID hit? No, it's probably less crazy than when COVID hit. Okay. What about when Y2K hit? And this is the thing. I having been in business now for 3 and a bit decades, I look at things with a little bit differently to most. I've been through 4 downturns, which means I've also ridden 4 summers, economic summers. And so these things will always happen. It's a 7 to 10 year cycle. It just is. It will keep doing that. We're in a cycle now where it's spring. We're planting for great things. Economies around the world are changing. Governments are downsizing. They've realized fat governments don't work, and so they're downsizing governments. And that's all over the world. That's not just some. And it's not just here where I live in the States where people go, oh, that Trump guy, he's crazy. Well, yeah, we can debate crazy. The previous guy was also crazy. The one before that was a little crazy. And the one before that, I don't think we're ever going to get a leader. I think to go into politics, you've got to be a little bit bloody crazy. But to go into business, you've got to be a little bit crazy as well. Ultimately, globalization is here as a trend. It just is. Globalization will be a thing. Artificial intelligence is a massive part of the shift right now. You're going to, when I first started in business, Mike Bash, who was one of the founding vice presidents of Federal Express, said, 80% of business is routine, so you got to systematize it, and 20% of business is different, so you got to humanize it, train the people to handle the 20%. We're in a phase now where AI is about 20%, and we're going to where AI will be 80%. So it's going to free people up to have a totally different lifestyle. The type of work that we'll be doing 20 years from now or 10 years from now, depending upon the speed with which that progresses, the type of work we're going to be doing is going to be so very different, so very different. Basic accounting will just never be done by a human being anymore. Basic law will never be done by a human being anymore. You won't even need contracts in many ways because of the way it'll be structured, sort of thing. So that is a big part of it. We're also seeing the generational shift. The vast majority of business owners that have employees is the boomer generation, and they're all retiring. So those businesses are either being shuttered or sold. And there's some amazing deals out there. If you want to learn how to buy companies right now, you can find some amazing deals where the boomers are literally lending you the money to buy the business from them. So I've been teaching that for 20-something years. But that's really huge. So, yeah, I think those are sort of the three biggest ones: globalization, AI, and the boomer retirement type thing. But you've also got to look at the shift in that globalization, where you've got China aging out, Japan aging out, US is not aging out, but aging slowly out, and India aging in. So, there's some big things going on there.
So you've mentioned AI, and I know that you enjoy using it. What does that look like for you, and do you think for ActionCOACH moving forward?
Well, right now, AI for an intellectual business, like an idea. So you've got to go back before AI. So we're in the information age, and it was about getting information. Well, we're now in the intelligence age, which is using the information. There's too much information now, not too little. And so what AI does is sort through the too much to give us the refined thing. There's no way that you can, as a CEO or a business person, take in all of that information, but AI can do that for you. So where it plays for us as ActionCOACH is the AI boss that we're building, which I'm not sure if that'll be the end name, but that's what we're using at this stage. AI boss will be able to coach an entire organization automatically. So if you've got 50 employees, it will every single day or week, depending upon how often you choose for it to coach them, it'll have a coaching session with your team, every team member. It will go through their statistics and their numbers every day. It'll ask them every day to text in the numbers, and then every week it'll have a coaching session with them and just go through their numbers with them and go through what their results were. Like it can measure behaviors, it can measure results, it can measure goals, and it can measure plans or to-do items, sort of thing. And from that, it'll do it. So it'll make every coach far more effective and make every owner far more effective, because the owner's leadership and coaching and management will be done through our software, through our AI. And the reason AI, what people have to understand is that the data is the algorithm. And because we have 30 years data on growing companies and thousands of hours of coaching that's trained the system how to coach, the algorithm is amazing. And so as that rolls out around the world, I think we're going to be very excited.
So legacy, what does that mean to you now, and what might that look like in, say, 20 years' time?
I was taught early on that you don't leave a legacy, you live your legacy. So, for me, it's what we do every day that is the legacy. How well we raise our kids, how well we build our teams, how well we represent ourselves in the marketplace, what lives we change, how we help people grow. The results we get is the legacy. It's not about leaving one. It's about living it all day, every day. And I teach that in leadership, because I think leadership it's got to be a calling as a leader. And even was it 2 weeks ago? I was at an event, and a young man came up to me, or young to me, but he says to me, "Brad, I've worked with ActionCOACH now for, I think he said 9 years." And he said, it's amazing how much it's changed me and my family, my kids. I just see my kids living a much better life because of what I've learned. And that to me is what great legacy is all about. It's not about, when I die, people will go, oh, wasn't that great? It was about today, they're getting the results.
I love that. Live your legacy. Yeah. So, Brad, a couple of questions to wrap up. Favorite business book?
That's impossible.
I mean, you read a book a week, right? I mean, we all give us a book a month and book a week. So I want you to pick a favorite.
Oh, I would have to go back to one of the early ones that turned me in the right direction. It's 2 books in one. It was called My Life in Advertising and Scientific Advertising by Claude C. Hopkins. So way back, because it turned me into a marketer and a business person that understood that marketing is the lifeblood of business. So there's so many.
And so the next question when I ask this, often the name Brad Sugars comes up more often than not. So for you, who's been the best mentor or coach throughout your life for you?
Again, tough because I've had so many. I have 3 that I work with now. But I do love Jeffrey Gitomer. He's very blunt with me. We've been friends for a long time. I remember when I said to Jeffrey, we were sitting in London, we'd just finished both of us were on a particular podcast, and we just happened to be in the studio at the same time. And I said, Jeffrey, we're going to go from being hundreds of millions a year to billions a year. And Jeffrey looked me dead in the eye and he goes, oh, you're not good to great anymore then. You're now shit to okay. And things like that. But Jeffrey's bluntness. Marshall Goldsmith has also been a great friend, and I like to bounce things off of when I'm thinking of ideas. For I have the privilege of having a lot of amazing mentors around the world. Just the other day I was sitting on stage and I have Gary V coaching me on I'm asking Gary questions and he starts turning and coaching me on how I should be doing my social media. And it's like, damn it, I asked this in front of 1,000 people. Now I've got to do it, so there you go.
Best piece of advice you ever received?
3 things Jim Rohn said. Number 1, never wish your life were easier, wish that you were better. Number 2, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. And number 3, read a book a week for the rest of your life. All 3 of them, E. James Rohn.
And so this is an extra question that I want to throw in. If you could give one piece of advice to every business owner or leader listening, what would that be?
The facetious answer, raise your prices. You're too cheap. The other one, you got to keep learning and growing. If you keep learning and growing, the business will keep growing. So you've got to be the one to do the first level of growth. Don't complain about the results you didn't get for the work you didn't do. And that work means you working on you, as Jim said.
Thank you for the learning, Brad. Thank you for being a guest on your own podcast today. Thank you for the learning.
It's been fun. Actually, I've listened to so many of them and now I get to answer the same questions. Real fun.
Thank you for the learning. Shell Adams, your host here. Hats off to you for committing to your learning by listening to this podcast. And if you'd like some help implementing some of these strategies, then click the link in the description to find your local action coach. They can help you put these strategies into action and take your business and your life to the next level. In the meantime, like and subscribe so that you're the first to get our next episode. We'll see you soon.